And now we're going to turn to that sweeping new election law signed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis this morning on Fox and Friends Live. It was an exclusive for that network, that bill signing. Among other things, this puts new limits on mail-in voting and on drop boxes. And it's already being challenged in court by groups including the NAACP, who say this law violates the Voting Rights Act. So joining us now, one of the law's critics who had a front row seat to this fight, Florida Democrat and State Representative Michele Rayner. Michele, thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And the first question for you as a critic of these voting measures. So what are you and voting rights advocates doing now that this bill is law? How do you make sure that everyone who wants to vote will be able to vote and get to the ballot box next election?
I mean, that's a great question. First off, we fought valiantly in on the House floor with regard to that bill. And so now we have to use the power of the courts. We have to use access to the courts, and that's what you've seen that has been done. You've had organizations to come together and file a lawsuit because these laws are unconstitutional and unconscionable. And really, it is just more red meat for the governor's base.
Yeah, and Michele, an outsider to Florida or to the United States might look at these laws, the one in Florida and elsewhere, doing so much changing to the election system and say there must be a lot of evidence of people voting with false identification, people voting more than once, dead people voting, or ballot boxes disappearing in the middle of the night or appearing. So was there evidence presented by the Republicans of the kind of fraud that would make this kind of law necessary? What did they offer in that regard?
You're absolutely right. You would think that there would be widespread fraud with all of the changes that were made. And in fact, Governor DeSantis and the bill sponsor of this legislation said this was the safest, most secure election that the state of Florida had since the year 2000. And in fact, he even said that Florida should be an example. It should be a beacon to the rest of the country. But what we're finding is the only voter fraud that occurred in the 2020 election is by former disgraced GOP state senator Frank Artillis, who had a sham candidate enter a state Senate race in order to make sure that the Republicans would have a majority or keep a majority in the state Senate. So the only election fraud that to be had in the last election was done by the GOP.
So why are they doing it?
Why are they doing it it is that our governor has other aspirations that don't include being the governor of the state of Florida, and that this is red meat for the Republican base and for the former president's base. And unfortunately, who it affects Black and brown folks. It affects working families. It affects people who want to have access to the ballot. And as I said in my floor speech, what type of democracy would restrict people's right to vote? So on a federal level, we're fighting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and which I believe would pass if it wasn't for the filibuster. So we're fighting for that on a federal level. And here on the state level, throughout the country, we're fighting against these unconstitutional voter suppression laws.
And Michele, you said that the election in Florida judged to be among the most secure and accurate in history. That's true across the country. President Trump's own Department of Homeland Security official and Attorney General and all those courts and everybody else said this election was fair. Nevertheless, this has now become an article of faith, a loyalty test in the Republican Party that you must believe the last election was rigged, undermining confidence in the election. Do you believe most Republican voters in your state believe Trump's assertions about the last election?
I believe that there are moral-minded people. I believe that there are people that see this big lie for what it is, an absolute lie. But unfortunately, it is the Republican, the Trumplicans, as people call them, base that is literally the loudest voice in the room. So it's drowning out all of those moral-minded people that are saying, hey, listen, I'm not a Democrat. Michele, you and I may not agree, but we see it for what it is. We see what's happening on a federal level to to Congresswoman Cheney. We see how, we are, the Republicans are doing whatever they can on a federal and state level to try to thwart access to the ballot box. And it's all to feed the Trump Republican base of the big lie, because they don't believe that they can win unless they have to play dirty in order to win.
It is a battle that is raging across the country in many, many states. Florida State Representative Michele Rayner, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.